Thank you, Michael. Really excited for this summer coming up. We have two high-profile friendlies with Colombia and Brazil, and then we enter Copa America, which will be the most competitive tournament besides the World Cup that we will compete in. So really looking forward to that, and really represents an opportunity for this group. We've seen what the players have been doing. They just finished up their season in Europe. And midway in MLS, and a lot of them are really performing at a high level. They won trophies. They qualified for Champions League. Their teams are top of the table in Major League Soccer, and we're looking forward to seeing how that growth continues with our team this summer. Really good opportunity for this team to collectively continue to grow and progress as we reach towards 2026. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. And we'll start with questions and begin with Stephen Goff from the Washington Post.
Greg, thanks for your time. With this group of 27, is there any way this is not essentially the Copa America team? Obviously, you'd have to cut one player, and injuries are always a concern. But is this essentially the group? And then the second part of the question is how much Olympic planning fed into this? Thanks.
It was a lot. It was twofold. We were looking at players that could have potentially been on this roster, but would have garnered more playing time with the Olympic group, and we decided that's the best possible option, for us to really give a broader player pool, international experience in good competition this summer. So that was very much part of the discussion, and a number of players have fallen into that category. Kevin Paredes being one of them, Aiden Morris another one. Brian Reynolds, potentially another one. So just making those decisions to really impact the entire player pool. And then in terms of the Copa America roster, the messaging was very clear that although a large majority of this roster will make up Copa America, nothing's set in stone. And I think that's the important thing. We want to have a good training camp. We want to have some good performances against Colombia and Brazil. And we have to monitor a couple players for their fitness standpoint, and a couple other for how we're performing. So this is going to set the stage for Copa America, surely, but it isn't set in stone.
Next will be Henry Bushnell from Yahoo.
Thanks, Michael. And hey, Greg, appreciate your time. Good to see you.
Hey, Henry.
On the strikers, we spoke to you a few months ago, and we asked you how many strikers would likely be in the Copa roster back when the roster size was 23, and you said it would probably be 2 or 3 pure strikers. Is there a chance that all 4 of these guys that are on this roster are going to be on the Copa squad, or is that a spot where you might, one of the cut might come from?
Well, I think it's how we look at their designated positions. Right now, currently, we see Haji more fulfilling the winger role. And specifically it's related to how he moves and how he is able to get chances. They generally come from wider positions, and with us lacking some depth in those positions, we think it's a great option to move him into that position. So then that would leave us with 3 strikers, and when you look at all the guys, they've been doing well when given the opportunity. And, between their club form and what they've done for the national team in the past, we think it's a talented group of strikers.
Next will be Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Hey, Greg. Hope all is well. Thanks for doing it. You've talked in the past about how the national team can be a place that provides an opportunity for a player to build or to kind of find some positivity in their career. Obviously it's been an up and down year for Gio. Didn't get the time he was hoping for Forrest. How important is this summer for him, and how much are you and the team trying to embrace this as an opportunity for him to kind of take that next step and see if he can kind of get things going again ahead of the start of the club season next year?
Yeah, Paul, I don't think there's any added pressure for Gio. All he has to do is continue to do what he's been doing with our team. And he's performed extremely well over these last 9 months, and shown that he can be an important part of this team. If you look at the impact in the Nations League, it was really good. And, we're expecting something similar in this summer. And our job as coaches is to put him in the best possible position to perform at a high level. and we'll use the training camp and the friendly games to prepare. And then for the entire team, using the friendly games and the tournament as a measuring stick of what we can achieve together.
Next will be Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, Ron.
Are you concerned at all with the lack of playing time with players like Gio and Matt and Tim Ream? And also, second question, what went into the decision not to bring Zach Steffen back in instead of the other three?
Yeah, so I'll address that first. Zach is doing pretty well with Colorado, and we've been watching him and following him in every game. And again, the message to Zach is that it's not permanent status not to have him in. We feel like going into this tournament, we wanted to go with the same three goalkeepers that we thought worked really well at the last World Cup. Matt's the number one as of now. And we're going to continue to support him. And with him or Gio or Tim, we are really looking at how they performed really well for us. And that, they've built up credit, but now it's about supporting them, using this time. We do have an extended chunk. Our first game isn't until June 23rd. So we have time. We have friendly games to build up their fitness and get them ready as we prepare for Copa America.
Next will be Doug McIntyre from Fox.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Greg. Good to see you. Thanks for doing this. You've taken 5 center backs as well. It's not often you get an extended training camp to work with your players at the international level. I mean, how much, if at all, are you considering a 3-man, 5-man back line, given that I think Chris Richards and Miles Robinson both played 3 with their clubs? Thank you.
So if you look at what we're trying to do, I mean, obviously with Serginho going down, we have to figure out the right back situation. And there's a couple different options we can look at, right? We have like for like with Joe Scally and Shaq Moore. We have a winger that can play there with Timothy Weah, who's played that for his club. We have center midfielders who can play there with Weston and Eunice. And then we have center backs that we're looking at. Can they play there? So we just wanted the ability in this training camp to have options, to have flexibility. Some of it may revolve around, a back 3. But the first objective is to see how we're going to fill that right back position, because we know that we're going to be missing Serginho.
We'll continue with Seth Bertelny from Pro Soccer Wire.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks for the time, Greg. You mentioned over the next couple of weeks you need to evaluate the fitness of a couple players ahead of naming the Copa America roster. I wanted to ask about a couple of those in particular. Josh Sargent and Tyler Adams both have had some question fitness lately, and so I'm wondering where they're at currently.
Yeah, that's all part of it. So trying to get Tyler and Josh in a place where they're healthy, they feel great going into Copa America. You saw in Nations League how we're very cautious with Tyler ramping up his minutes in a way that protected him, and it will be no different now. Josh has a little bit of foot swelling going on that we want to get control of. Tyler has been training, he is back, so we want to build him up again in the right way to get them ready. But it's going to be a balancing act in this training camp. But, something that we're looking forward to getting the guys together and really trying to build towards 2026. That's the main objective here. Just keep stacking these experiences on top of each other, really pushing the players, challenging the players with top level teams, and in hope that we continue to build towards our goal of having a strong team in 2026.
Next is Jonathan Tannenwald from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Thanks, Michael. Greg, I wanted to ask about 2 other players who aren't on this team in the context of the Olympic team, because I'm sure you've been in the conversation about who the overage players might be in that group, and that's Austin Trusty and Brandon Vasquez. I think that might be where they're heading.
Yeah, so we've had conversations with Marco, and Brandon's a guy that is definitely in the conversation for that group as well. We're evaluating the availability of some of our other players for the Olympic pool. So it's just about the communication with clubs and communication with the players. But certainly those are two names that came up in that context. Another name that came up was Walker Zimmerman. We know he's working back to getting to fitness. So he's another guy. And again, it's just really trying to broaden the player pool that will get international experience in this summer, and really being thoughtful about how we do that.
Next is Charlie Bone from MLSsoccer.com.
Hey, Greg, three questions about three domestic players.
Wow, Charlie, you're overextending yourself today.
Sorry, yeah, not trying to do an Ibis here. Miles Robinson, Shaq Moore, Timmy Tillman, your domestic guys.
Yep.
What led to those guys still being in the mix? What have you seen from them on the MLS front that led them to get the call?
Miles has been performing really well for his club. He's performed really well for us in the past. I think that's an important distinction with him, especially. He's the guy that we've counted on for a while. And, he's earned the call up with Timmy. Timmy made a good impression on us in January. And again, when we're looking at this roster versus Olympic roster, there were some other guys that were in contention as well, but we felt like the balance of it would be better to keep them with the Olympic group and move Timmy to the senior team. And then with Shaq, we know he's getting back to his form right now. He has been out for a while, but he's been able to get on the field now and get some more minutes. And, he's a guy, when we're looking at our matchups in this summer, a lot of these wingers are very good 1v1, and we think that's a strength of his defensive work against good 1v1 players. So that's something just that we took into consideration.
Next is Michael DeCourcy from the Sporting News.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Greg, I wanted to ask you, when you had Tyler injured, you were able to turn to Gio sort of in a quasi number 10 role. If you have Tyler healthy, where does that put Gio? Still in the midfield? I mean, obviously you've used him as a winger in the past. What direction do you go at that point?
Yeah, I think you just need to go reference the Nations League final, where they both started. Gio as a 10-8 or 8-10, and Tyler as the 6, the holding midfielder. And I think, something like that works, midfield of Gio, Weston, Tyler, Eunice, put him in there as well. And, Luca, all we want is competition for spots. And I think the more we can get that, the better off we're going to be.
Next is Brian Sciaretta from American Soccer Now. Brian, we can't hear you. All right, Brian, we'll come back to you and try again, but we'll continue with Ryan Talmadge from Goal.com.
Thank you, Michael. And Greg, back in the Nations League, you chose to leave Brendan Aronson off the squad. And you said initially that, this was just a moment in time and that, he'd be back at this point. You look at this squad, obviously he's back, and in the months since, you've seen an uptick in his performances and in the things he's been able to do on the club level. So just for you, what have you seen in the months since, and now looking at this team, how do you kind of see him fitting into it, given all the pieces that you have in place now?
Yeah, he ended up coming into Nations League and was on that squad and helped win our third Nations League title. It was, I think, the initial roster that you're referring to. But with Brendan, to me, it's like all our players. Things aren't always perfect. And what we're looking for when things aren't perfect is the determination, the resiliency to keep going and keep battling. And when you look at Brendan in particular, I think the mindset that he showed throughout the course of this year has been outstanding. He worked his way to be a starting player. I don't know if you saw on the last day of the season, Union Berlin, was able to survive, and he played a big part of that. And that goes a long way. And, we're hoping that he takes this experience and continues to grow and continues to progress. But he's been an important part of what we've been doing. And, we're excited to have him in the group.
Next will be Alex Walker from WFTV in Orlando.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Alex.
Historically, Team USA has done A, really well in Orlando, and B, the reception in Orlando has always been great when the team gets the chance to play down here. Just how eager are you, this group, to play in Orlando in front of a very strong national team fan base down here?
Yeah, we're going to need that Orlando magic against Brazil, right? Hoping that Orlando comes through for us again. No, but all kidding aside, Orlando's been a great venue for us. We love playing there. We love the fans there. I'll never forget that qualifier when we rolled into the stadium. Everyone was already in the stadium early and cheering us on as we got to the stadium. So there was a really special moment. One of the highlights of World Cup qualifying for sure. But it's going to be a great game. Brazil's the top opponent. All you need to do is look at their roster and you can see how talented they are. And it's going to be a great spectacle for soccer in Orlando that day.
Next will be Sophie from TalkSport. Sophie, would you mind helping me with the pronunciation of your last name?
Yes, it's Nicolau.
Thanks, Sophie. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Greg.
Sophie.
You have 9 players who'll be competing in the Champions League next season, and a group of other players who've had a major impact for their teams. Do you think that this US team is a little too underrated?
No, it's not about what the outside is saying about our group. I think we're 12th or 13th in the world in FIFA rankings. We've won our third Nations League title. We've won a Gold Cup. Recently went to the second round of the World Cup as the youngest team, the youngest playing age in the World Cup. We let our performance speak for itself. And it's really not about, how the outside evaluates us. It's a very strong knit group. The guys love being in our environment. They love representing the United States. And, that's what we focus on. We focus more on ourselves. When I think about this season, the European season for some of the players as it just concluded, you had Christian Pulisic with 15 goals in Serie A. Cam Carter-Vickers won a league title. Rico Serginho Malik won a league title. Weston McKennie, Tim Weah won the cup in Italy. So just a number of standout performances from our guys. Chris Richards is a starter in the Premier League. Anthony Robinson, a starter. The guys have been doing really well, and now it's about continuing to progress as a team by using this summer, which will give us some highly competitive games.
We'll go to Michele Giannone from Univision.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Hey, Michele.
There's a lot of discourse about signature wins, and you've talked how important it is to learn how to beat teams like Brazil and Colombia. But when you're preparing a tournament like Copa America, where do you put the balance between the preparation and trying things, what you need to do for Copa America, and the actual result, and how does the result matter for you in this case? Thank you.
It's a good question. And we're really using these games to see both individually and collectively, how we can perform. And when you get to play against teams like Brazil, Colombia, and Uruguay, what you get is information. And that information is going to help you grow and help you improve as you go towards 2026. I can give you other examples of where early on, with this group, some of these games really helped give us key information that helped us grow and improve and to get where we are today. So we want to continue to do that, really using these games, to help this group progress both individually and collectively.
We'll take a few more questions and continue with Sanjay Sujanthakumar.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Greg, for your time as always. Two questions. One, just to follow up on Michele's question. There is a chance that you see one of these teams if you get out of the group. So how much of that is a factor in terms of preparation of what you do, and then also how you go about analyzing them? Do you think there's any caginess there, or is it just, approaching it the way you would any other friendly? And then second question, you guys will be based in our nation's capital. Any plans to take the guys to see some of the historical buildings, monuments? Is there a White House visit plan, anything like that you guys are going to do before you leave the area? Thank you.
No, we have a great trip planned, and part of being in DC is you get to tie into the heritage of our country. It's something that we take a lot of pride in, representing our country. And when we have opportunities to do things that are outside the soccer world is where we really, I think, really tighten the group and really bring the group together. So we're looking forward to that, the DC trip for sure. In terms of the games against Colombia and Brazil, it's a really good question, because Brazil, I'm looking at Brazil's lineup, and they're going to have, or their roster, they're going to have a number of players in the Champions League final, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with those players, if they bring them over and let them perform against us. But they have a ton of depth in their roster, so I'm not exactly sure what group we're going to see. They play Mexico a couple of days beforehand, so maybe the Champions League players will get rested and then play against us. But either way, for us, it's about getting information in these games and giving the players the experience, and then hopefully giving them the confidence that when we go into the tournament, we're prepared and ready to play.
Next is Donald Wine from Stars and Stripes.
Thank you, Michael. And hey, Greg, good to see you, and looking forward to having you all here in our nation's capital over the next couple of weeks.
Good to see you, Donald.
You mentioned the guys that are not on this roster who could be in play for the Olympics. Are there any guys on this roster that could be considered? And if so, I know a few guys have casually expressed interest in representing at the Olympics. How would that conversation go with those players, with those clubs, as you navigate this entire player pool for the summer between you and Marco?
Yeah, so the conversations with the players have already taken place, and now it's about the conversations with the clubs and really evaluating, the load in Copa America, the load in this whole training camp, and figuring out what makes sense for the players. But there are a number of players that we are considering for both the Olympics and Copa America. And we just have to see how the whole thing plays out. Nothing's set in stone, and it's something that speaking to Marco, and he understands the need to be patient and work through these conversations first.
We'll go to Jake Fenner from the Daily Mail.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, Greg. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Jake.
I'm curious. I have two questions. The first thing that I was wondering was, is Lenny Maloney potentially one of those players that you see as making that Olympic roster, and is that possibly why he's not on currently? The second thing that I was wondering was, seeing as this team is, as Stephen alluded to, and as you kind of alluded to, essentially mostly going to be the makeup of the Copa America roster, do you believe right now that this roster is good enough to fight for that trophy, for that title?
So, the thing about it is, I think we have a talented squad. There's no question about it. And we're going to use these weeks to prepare for Copa America. And then we're going to do our best. We're gonna learn from every game we play leading up to it, and then in the Copa America itself, we're gonna compete, and we'll see where we go with it. All of this is really building this group, for 2026, but realizing that this is an important tournament as well, and we're really focused on it. This is a great opportunity for this group to play in the world's most historic soccer tournament that there is. And we're excited about it. We're looking forward to it. It's a different type of soccer that gets played at Copa America. We're looking forward to battling through that. And it represents a great opportunity for this group. Regarding Lenny, I've had conversations with him. We see the depth chart for the Olympic group comprising of a number of Olympic age eligible players in midfield. So it's not. He's not in consideration for that per se as of now, but he's supportive, and I think as he went through this season, he picked up an injury and getting back to form. He played in the last game, which is good, but he just misses out due to some other guys performing at really high levels.
The Copa America, the oldest international tournament, first played in 1916, 14 years before the first FIFA World Cup. Our last question comes from Andrew Jones.
Thanks, Michael. It's always good to see you. Good to see you as always, Greg, Triple G on that front. First, I want to ask you with how having the Olympic roster and having the added players for Copa America, every roster is hard to make from the World Cup on to Nations League right now. Was this one a little bit less of a challenge because of having those Olympics as a option to get players that were deserving and just missing out? And also just your thoughts on Jesse Marsh becoming Canada's new head coach.
Two-part question. I love it, Andrew. No, that's exactly right. That's a good point that you bring up, is that decisions were easier because we knew that there were certain opportunities for players with the Olympics coming up. We have the Japan friendlies in June for that group, and then we have the Olympics. So, by the end of this, we're going to get, 42 players or 44 players, prepared with international experience. So that's definitely something that made it a little bit easier choosing our roster. In terms of Jesse, I think it's great for Canada. Jesse's a good coach. We're excited to get to compete against them. And, it's something that we want all the teams in our region to keep progressing and keep getting better and keep improving. And we're looking forward to seeing them and how they perform.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what we bring you here at the Pitch Pod, please do us a favor, hit that like and that subscribe. Don't forget, we're available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. Thank you, everyone, and keep pitching out there.
In a game, the round ball, round posts, anything can happen.